Okay, space talk time. We are here, we are live, and yes, we unfortunately have to recap this game. Was not the best of situations in all three phases, but obviously we'll deep dive into all that. But man, Bills obviously were the victors today, 38-3 final score. And like I said, man, plenty that we will digest today, man. But before we start or go any further, shout out to each and every one of y'all thus far that are here. Make sure you're liking the stream as well. And if you have not subscribed to the channel just yet, make sure you do so. But let's go ahead and start how we always like to start, man. Let me know where you're tuning in from. After that, man, I give you the big boy shout out. Then we'll talk a little bit about my initial reactions to the game today. All right. And Mike Hood, shout out to you, man. I appreciate you acknowledging the T. You know it's killer season for your boy over here, man. Anytime we in October, I gotta go, scary theme every single day, baby. So definitely like that. All right. I see you, Craig Ellis, tuning in from the 717, Lancaster, PA. Leah Warren, take the smile off my face. You remember, my team was gonna win regardless. So I was gonna be smiling regardless. That's all I'm saying today, man. All right. Yo, hey, I'm with y'all, all right? Money Bag, I see you tuning in from South Carolina. Daryl Syke, the 757, Hampton, VA. You know that's the crib. Wendy Johnson, tuning in from the 562, Long Beach, California. And you know I got love for AJ Martinez, Santa Fe, New Mexico. The 505, big time. I like it over there. All right, let me see who else we got tuning in. Randy Harris, the 757. Let's go. White Spider Inc., the 540, in Cross Junction, VA. Shout out to Cross Junction, VA. And shout out to the 540. You know that's where the JMU Dukes are, officially ranked in the top 25 AP poll, first time in program history. Salute all my Dukes out there, baby. All right, and then I will wrap it up with my man Calculated Snipe, tuning in from San Antonio, Texas. Love that. Actually, now I got a couple more I want to shout out. Trade Night, I see you in the building. 253 North Carolina. Mr. Choose the 210 San Antonio. You know I got to shout you out as well. And now my final one is Todd Sikowski. He said he is sad in Tucson, Arizona. And trust me, I definitely can feel you on that as well, because as we talked about this week in the podcast, yeah, man, this is one of the ones where I was going to be excited because both my teams were playing. But at the same time, you still, you're going to enjoy one side winning, but you also going to feel the pain of the other side losing. So trust me, I still am with you. I still feel, the things that we are feeling right now. But let's start this thing off. Like I said, a couple of my initial thoughts. Number one, the Bills' offense is as good as advertised. We talked about Josh Allen and how it's a top 5 player in the NFL total. I mean, realistically, a front runner for the MVP race. And we knew this Bills team was really good because of what he brings to the table. That wasn't lost at any point in time today. Obviously, we saw what he was able to do with the insane first half with 4 touchdowns, 300 plus passing yards, all in the first. Ends the game with 424 passing, 4 touchdowns, the 1 interception. But to me, that wasn't the part that, like I said, really surprised me, because anyone that's watched Josh this year, anyone that's watched Josh the past couple of years, know that he's capable of these type of performances. But to me, the thing that was a little bit more surprising was we never really did anything to rattle him. We never really did anything to make him feel hurried up in the pocket or under duress. I think he was hit one time throughout the whole day. And this is a dude that was dropping back and throwing a lot today as well. But that was the part that I guess I was really disheartened with in terms of that angle, because yes, Josh, when you give him time like that, he's going to look great. And that's what he had today. He had plenty of time, and obviously his receivers made some plays, and we'll get to them in a second. But to me, when you're playing against this Bills offense, if you can't pressure Josh Allen or make him feel like he has to hurry up or do some of the Superman-like stuff, I feel like you're setting yourself up for failure. And that was kind of what was going on when you're talking about defensively. Our front four and stuff like that just could not generate enough havoc, could not make Josh feel hurried up. So that was the first thing, like I said, that I really wasn't happy to see with us defensively. Second thing, man, these receivers. Now, Stephon Diggs, okay, cool, man. I get it. Diggs is all world, and rightfully so. He ends the game with, 8 catches, 102 yards, and a touchdown. If it was just Diggs, man, you tip your cap, you move on. Because we know Diggs is an elite receiver. He's a top 5 receiver, top 10 absolute worst case scenario. But this is what he's capable of. But the one for me, man, that, like I said, I'm still not as surprised because I know how good Gabriel Davis is just from watching the Bills games and stuff like that. But I didn't think that he would be able to do that versus, our corners. I thought that we would be a lot more competitive when you're looking at this dude. I mean, 3 catches, 171 yards, but we know what it was. It was 2 explosive plays. The one was the 98-yard catch to start it off, which, once again, is that a miraculous play by Gabe Davis? Partly, yes, man. He does run by Levi, and he's able to split, Levi Wallace and Trey Norwood. But the other side of that is defensively, you got to be better. If you're Levi Wallace, you're playing in a cover 6, you got Trey Norwood over there giving you some help over top. You can't get ran by. And then for Trey Norwood, you also have to maintain your leverage as well. And that's one of the things when you're talking about a young player. Not all of us, but people do like to get on Terrell Edmonds a lot. And we talk about why you don't need to always be like that on him, because he is actually a really good player that is in position a lot of the times, but he's also a really short tackler as well. I thought that those things were really missing today in certain elements of it, and it was really highlighted on that first touchdown pass from Gabe Davis, man. That's one of those plays where Norwood and Levi, you two together, y'all are working together. You cannot allow that to happen. He catches that ball, okay, but you can't let him split both of you guys and then take it 98 for a touchdown. But then to come back, and then obviously he makes the heck of a play on Minkah Fitzpatrick, which, like I said, man, certain players you're going to say, all right, tip your cap, he makes that play. But to me, that was a little bit of an eye-opener. It was a shocker, because this is Minkah Fitzpatrick we're talking about. Not Levi Wallace, not Cam Sutton, not Josh Jackson, none of these other dudes. Minkah. So in that element, I was like, man. But Gabriel Davis, like I said, man, he is one of those guys that really started to come on for the Bills, obviously last year and in the postseason. Anyone that remember watching that Chiefs game, he was one of the guys that really stepped up. But like I said, for me, I still thought our DB should have handled him a lot better and not allow him to essentially break this game open the way that he did. But then after that, man, I thought that, in terms of the last quick observation, in terms of as a whole, our defense, or just as a whole, our team, I thought that we really started off the game slow. We talk about how the game started for us. Bills, obviously, they get the big 98-yard touchdown, but then what do? We fumbled the opening kickoff return. James Pierre, now obviously that was partly because Steven Sims had something happen to his eye in warm-ups, so he doesn't, he's not available to the team early on and things like that, so we knew that was kind of crazy. But to fumble the Steelers opening kickoff and allow the Bills to get the ball in the short field. Now, granted, we made them kick a field goal and they missed, which was huge, but still, that wasn't good. And then after that, it was like one thing after another. It's like, man, we can't get out of our own way, and we're allowing this Bills team more opportunities, more times to get the ball, more times to potentially take the field in just a more favorable manner. Those are certain things that you can't do against that Bills team because of how explosive they are. And we said, man, this isn't a team that you want to get behind against and have to throw the ball a lot. And what did we do? We got behind. That first quarter wasn't terrible, but once it got to the second quarter, that's where they really went on that offensive explosion and stuff like that, scoring 21 points. And that really was where the game kind of got out of hand. But now for us on the offensive side of the ball, because obviously we know it's two sides of this thing. And yes, we did have the young boy out there, Kenny Pickett, making his first official start. Stat line ended 34-52, 327 through the air, 0 touchdowns, 1 pick, 3 sacks. So if you're just reading the numbers alone, you'd be like, hey, man, that ain't bad, man. That's all right. But we will all be able to agree that a lot of that was garbage time in terms of the stats. When I looked at Kenny, I thought early on that opening drive, I was really liking what I saw from him. I thought the confidence was there. I thought in terms of taking some chances with his arm, I liked that. Didn't look like the moment was too big for him or anything. And I also thought that Matt Canada was actually calling a good game on that opening series. Obviously, that's when we had, I think it was 3 first downs and stuff like that. So we were moving. We look good. 3 third-down completions and stuff. So started out like, all right, we're going to be all right. Get field goal and stuff like that. But then it was like this drastic shift. Whether we put it all on Kenny, Canada, honestly, to me, I still think it falls in between. It got conservative. I thought that Matt Canada at times tried to protect Kenny a little bit too much. But then I also didn't like some of the decisions on third down. Obviously, when we get to all 22, we'll be able to see full route concepts and stuff like that. But at times, it felt really similar to the Mitch third down situations where, you're throwing passes or you're having guys run routes that are deliberately short of the first down sticks by multiple yards. How many times did we see that today? And it was just frustrating because, like I said, I don't know if, at that part of the game, they're telling Kenny or Kenny is feeling like he needs to be more safe with the ball and just not allow it to get out of hand, or if that's Matt Canada just by design saying, hey, man, this is where we want the football to go. All I know is, to me, at times, it felt very similar to what we've been seeing this year, and that was the frustrating part because, to me, the way you could see Kenny throwing that ball to George Pickens, the way you could see Kenny when he was putting that ball even towards Deontay, who obviously didn't have his best performance today either. At times, you're like, man, open this thing up, allow Kenny to do a little bit more because he's showing you that he is capable of those things at least. But like I said, as a whole, I just felt like the game plan at times was really cautious. And like I said, when we get the full all 22, we can really look and decide how cautious it was in terms of the scheme and then how much of that was on Kenny. That's when we'll be able to give you more of a hard stance with that. But, that was kind of my first reaction to that. And then obviously on the interception, to me, it was just a bad throw. I like the idea. It was cover two. So versus cover two, that's what we call the honey hole, right? It's short of the squat corner. I mean, it's longer in terms of the throw. You're throwing it longer than the squat corner, but you need it shallower than that half-field safety. Kenny ends up just throwing it a little bit too short, so the underneath defender, the squat corner, is able to just essentially sink back and make that interception right there. He just has to work on his touch on that particular pass. But in terms of the decision, that is the correct decision when you're trying to beat a cover two. That's the throw, but that's one of them throws where you got to be on it. The timing of it, the arc, the velocity, the touch, everything has to be right for that to work. And unfortunately on that was just on him in terms of just the placement of that ball. But like I said, that was kind of like my thoughts on him, but still didn't think that it was god awful by Kenny. At the same time, Kenny is young. Kenny's going to have to continue to grow, and this is a part of that. But I also wonder how much of that was on Canada as well, because like I said, man, outside of that opening drive, it did seem really conservative, and like we were really trying to run that ball a lot. And unfortunately, man, when we're trying to run that ball that much, if we're getting the type of productivity on the ground, then you can do that. But today that wasn't the case either. Obviously, when we're looking at our rushing numbers, Jaylen Warren, he was actually the leading rusher, 5 for 24. And then you had Najee, 11 for 20. And I know people, were a little perturbed with Najee and his ineffectiveness today and stuff like that. When I watch him, I just don't know right now, man. I don't think that he's not healthy, but I do think that he still continues to try to do a little bit too much. But then I also wonder, is it an explosive thing? Like, granted, he's the same size as he was a year ago based on what he said and stuff like that. But now I'm wondering, like, man, you don't want to try to lose weight in season, but do you need to drop some? Because at times he's just not looking like that explosive back that he could be. He's not, being able to get in and out of these schools the way that we're accustomed to seeing him do. So that's the part, man, where it's getting really intriguing watching him. And in contrast, when you talk about a guy like Jaylen Warren, who, every time he touches the field right now, he's explosive, man. He's getting that ball and going downhill. Those are some of the things that we need to get figured out. But I'm hoping that this continues to just, well, not continues to be, but I'm hoping that this was just the rust part for Najee, and that ultimately it'll continue to go away and we'll get back to getting the Najee that we're accustomed to seeing, and not this new version right now where it just looks really stagnant at times. But we got to be better, man. The consistency has to be there. Offensive line wise, oddly enough, man, I didn't think that Kenny was under crazy pressure throughout the day. But at the same time, they still got to be better. I think Kenny was sacked, 3 times, stuff like that. But as a whole, I did think that Kenny did have a good amount of time in comparison to what it could have looked like for this offensive line. But as a whole, team just has to be better. And then to put the icing on the cake, you go to special teams. And special teams was all self-sabotage. You talk about, like I said, man, starting out, Steven Sims injured in warm-ups, eye injury, who knows? He did come back at some point in the game, but that ultimately led to Pierre being out there, fumbling opening kickoff. Boz missing 2 field goals today, very uncharacteristic of him, 33-yarder and 45-yarder. Like I said, man, just not good across the board. But a couple of positives before we open this thing up and start tapping into these comments and getting your thoughts or getting your questions off. A couple players that I did want to shout out, man. George Pickens. Hello. The dude continues the ball, man. Ends up with 6 catches, 83 yards a day. The dude continues to show, like, hey, man, he is always open. The beautiful catch he had, man, where he literally is 15 yards downfield, hands catch, keeps the ball away from the defender. Nice. The freaky catch / incompletion / I still don't know if he caught it or not, but we never challenged it. I think it was in the fourth quarter. That type of stuff, like George Pickens is really showing that, man, we need to target him more. We need to continue to feature him more. And it's different when this is week 1. And we talk about Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool being the veterans. Obviously, Deontay, the higher paid guy. And I understand why you would want to go to them more. But that's changed now, man. Here we are, 5 weeks into this thing, man. We're seeing the drop issues reoccur from Deontay Johnson, which is very unfortunate because I thought that he had put that to rest. But as we saw today, he has not, unfortunately. Chase Claypool is still having some of the same struggles that has plagued him throughout his career. To me, George Pickens is the guy. George is the guy that you got to start going to more. Start scheming it up and designing it for him because he is the guy that is showing when you target him, he is rewarding you with productivity. I don't care where the productivity comes from. If it's a rookie, it's a rookie, so be it. But he obviously needs to be featured a lot more in this thing and needs to be targeted a lot more. And that's something that I think, or that I hope Matt Canada can start to scheme up a little bit more of, because I don't think it's a Kenny issue in terms of going to George Pickens. I still think they got a natural rapport. He likes him a lot. And I think that they have that nice just communication, man, that nonverbal communication where they can just read each other's minds, so to speak. But we need to start seeing more of that by design as well, because these other receivers aren't producing consistently enough. Whereas George Pickens, every time you go to him, he is. So I definitely think that he's one of those guys, man. And Jaylen Warren, man, like I said, I like what I saw from him. Just not enough of him, but I still continue to like how he is running that rock, man. Every time he gets out there, you see the speed, you see the explosiveness. I like him a lot. I just don't know how you expand his role while you're still trying to get Najee up to speed. I mean, it's just one of them things right now, man, but we'll see how this thing plays out with those two dudes, man. Yeah, and on defense, man, it wasn't a lot of prettiness going on. Obviously, my man Cam, he made a couple plays out there, but still not enough from him. Inside linebacker-wise, Spillane has some plays on coverage, but still, like I said, man, when your team gives up 38 points, man, it's hard to say, oh, yeah, man, Miles Jack, you did some good things. Oh, this guy did some good things. Levi Wallace, you got to pick. But you also were getting picked on as well. Our DBs as a whole, man, I thought they had a rough outing. And then on top of that, they got hurt afterwards. Levi obviously leaving the game with a concussion. Cam Sutton with the hamstring. It's just like, dang, going, man. Even when you're struggling, it's like, man, all right, at least stay healthy. But now it's like you play bad and you're not healthy on top of that. So, yeah, man, this is going to be interesting, as we continue to go forward with this thing, man. But, like I said, those are my initial thoughts on this. So now let's see what your guys have over there in terms of questions and comments and concerns. All right, and while I take a sip of this thing, y'all make sure you like this stream. Shout out to everybody that is here with me today, man. Definitely appreciate y'all. I see you, Ryan Har, joining the upper room. Well, welcome to the upper room. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Oh, and announcement. The new website, arthurmoats.com, is up officially. Make sure you check that out at some point in time, man, going forward. Anytime y'all can't get comments answered on the show, you can also go to the website, man. It's going to be areas where you can submit your questions, and obviously I'll be up there answering them and stuff like that as well. So once again, that's arthurmoats.com. All right, DeLorean Waters. Rough game, man. Looking rough for this stretch going into the bye. Regardless, just have to continue building rapport with these young offense, and hope they can keep the defense off the field a bit more. Yeah, that is, part of it. I know at times when the game was getting out of hand and they were up, 31-3 for the majority of that third quarter, and it was kind of like, all right, do you start switching out players and stuff like that? It's like, no, you don't. And the reason why you don't is because you have to let these guys go through this. This is a part of the growing pains. This is a part of how you hopefully learn from this and get a solid foundation and start to get successful. You have to have some of these ones where you just get flat out whooped and you can't go and seek comfort. You can't make excuses. You can't say, oh, it wasn't me. I did this. Nah, In a game like that, everybody is accountable. From the coaching staff all the way down to the last player on the roster. Everybody was a part of that thing right there. So you have to let those guys go through those growing pains, man. But I am hoping that they will learn from this, because as bad as it was, when we go and cut the tape on, there's still going to be some things where we can say, you know what? You can build upon this. You can build upon that. You can build upon this. But at the same time, you also have to acknowledge where they struggled at. And as long as they're being real and truly candid with themselves in that element of this thing, they will get through this. But this is definitely a part of those growing pains, man. So make sure we hold on, baby. All right. See who we got next up on the docket. Shout out to the homie Q. He says Canada has to go. I was about to ask, man, who we firing this week? Y'all know every week, whenever we lose, y'all be up here like, yo, we're going to fire this guy now. Now it's going to fire that guy. I was wondering, were we going to go strictly Canada? Because in the past, y'all know it would be quarterback in Canada. So I ain't know. Well, I'm glad for the clarification right there. So it's Canada today. All right. Well, yeah, man, he didn't have his best performance, obviously. But at the same time, I do question, would your opinion of Canada in this offense be different if some of the drops that occurred today had not happened, or some of the Deontay Johnson stuff, man, just the toe tapping on the sideline, if those were completions, is that different? Because now, instead of us, not converting some of these third downs or not being in scoring position, especially on that opening drive, you think about the opening drive for us, man, if those toes get down, man, we're essentially on the 2-yard line with first and goal. Like, I think that changes a lot, but that is also a part of it, man, the execution element. And that's why it's like, you got to execute. But it's just always wondered, man, like, do we solely put that on Canada, even though we're watching these guys and we're saying, hey, this guy is not producing? Is that still on Canada or not? But all good, though. All good. Florida made JB. Season is over for the Steelers. Rebuild for next year. Oh, my gosh. No, don't doom and gloomy just yet, baby. Not just yet. Remember, this is the first game of the new era, the new KP8 Kenny era. So, it's going to be some growing pains. It's not over, though, just yet. Nah, you still got time. Now, do we got to start winning or find a way to split these next couple? Absolutely. But think about before we played this Bills game, man, when the season started, and we said, man, this is the 4-game stretch that we had in terms of Buffalo, Tampa Bay, Miami, and Philly. It was like, yo, if you can split that 2-2 somehow, get to the bye, man, you live with it. So that's still on the table right now. Heck, we can still go 3-1 in this situation. Now, granted, I understand the optimism might vary depending on who we're talking to, but there is still some stuff that we could build upon. But the consistency in all 3 phases has to be there. And that's the part that, regardless of who was at quarterback, that's the thing that still has not been addressed. And that's one of the things that, when we talk about the difference with Kenny out there, or even when it was Mitch out there, the inconsistency across the board when you're talking our running game, when you're talking our receivers getting separation and catching the ball, when you're talking about our pass rush, when you're talking about our pass coverage, our special teams unit, all of those inconsistencies continue to plague us. And until we get that completely put to rest, we're always going to feel like this. And now when you're placing a team like Buffalo, who is actually really good, they're going to take advantage of those things. And now, we saw what that looked like today, but this is still something where we can fix these things in terms of the in-house stuff. But we have to do it sooner rather than later. Otherwise, this season will get out of hand and it will be over. But right now, we're not there just yet. AJ Martinez, we got love for you too in New Mexico. Moats, man, appreciate you for that, baby. You know I love my New Mexico people, baby. Let's get it. All right. Ivan Victor. I already know y'all going to be all doom and gloom today. Keep y'all heads up and remember that Pickett to Pickens is a legit connection. And we have so much great talent signed for years to come. Absolutely. The talent is 100% there. The consistency is what's missing right now. And we also are missing TJ Watt, who, if y'all haven't heard about the reports that came out, I think it was yesterday, that TJ did have to have a arthroscopic surgery on his knee. Should not add too much to his recovery time from what, the reports were and stuff like that. From personal experience, scope usually is about 2 to 4 weeks. It's more so just cleaning up some of the loose particles and bodies that are in your knee. So not as invasive as like an ACL, MCL surgery, stuff like that, but still something where it was going to take some time. But because he was still recovering from the pec injury, that's why they're saying that it shouldn't be, adding time to that. But it depends on when you thought he would be coming back. If you thought it was before the bye versus after the bye, that might, change how you feel about this new additional thing for TJ, man. But I do feel like, his impact or the lack thereof is still felt. When you don't have a TJ Watt out there defensively, it changes a lot. It changes how you pressure the quarterback. It changes what you call defensively. And as you saw today, man, we were in a bind at times. You don't blitz Josh Allen because if you blitz him, now he's able to beat a guy or his receivers. You don't want to have Diggs out there solo. Obviously, Gabriel Davis, another one of those guys. But If you sit back and play zone, he could pick you apart. If you play man, as we saw, whenever we went to play man, what did he do? He'll pull it down and just run. So those are some of the things that he would bring to the table to make it really difficult for us. But he is one of those unicorns. But the talent is definitely there for us. And like you said, man, the Kenny Pickett to George Pickens connection is definitely there, man. And I like the fact that those two guys are starting to be more intentional. And shout out to George Pickens for this, man. Even when the game was out of hand, late in that third quarter, man, every time you see him catch that pass, he still gets up like he is loving it. He still gets up like he is emotionally in tuned and attached to this game, and it still meant something to him. I really enjoyed that because at times you never know with young players. When them games get out of hand, man, some of them young guys, they start packing it up. They're like, man, let's get ready for next week. But I did like the fact that George was still very much engaged and very passionate out there, even when the game was technically out of hand by that point in time. All right, Calculated Snipe says, drop passes was a killer today. Bad calls. Sure. Yeah, man, the drop passes were definitely a part of the lack of productivity offensively, man. You got to catch some of those passes, man. And I thought Kenny was putting some good footballs out there, man. He was challenging these DBs. Because like we said, going into this game, the Bills secondary was very banged up. They didn't have a lot of their talented players out there. But when you're dropping passes or you're not coming down with some of these throws that aren't even 50-50 balls. These are 70-30 balls. These are passes hitting you in your hands. That hurts you. Those are drive killers. And we saw that time and time again, and that was part of the reason why when we talk about Matt Canada, I'm kind of like, I understand we put fault on him, and rightfully so, but the other part, I'm like, some of these drops is like, man, that's not on Matt Canada. Matt Canada called that call. He schemed it up. The dude was open. He's got to catch the ball. I mean, how many of those do we see today? Too many. So that's the part, man, where I'm like, we have to be more consistent there. The talent is there. They're open, but you got to consistently come down with these catches and stuff like that, man. So that was a little bit disheartening as well. Elijah West. Oh, here we go. Trade Deontay Johnson. Draft Jordan Addison. Clutch time. He no-shows. Ah, man. Well, we did just pay Deontay. Obviously, it was a 2-year deal, so I get it, but I doubt that it happens, man. I seriously do. Number one, because Jordan Addison's still in college. Now, obviously, he comes out next year. Different conversation, depending on what we're picking at. He would be very intriguing. I hope we're not picking early enough to acquire his services, though. But, yeah, man, Deontay has to pick it up. It's no excuse for him, man. No excuse right now. It's different when you're a rookie or you're year two. It's different when you're still under your rookie contract. But when you're no longer under that rookie salary, when you're getting 18 a year, you're supposed to make those catches. The expectation is that you can make those catches. The expectation is that you're a force multiplier. You can't continue to have those type of drops while you're getting that type of money and expect to not come under criticism or not have the team start looking at you and potentially, second guessing some things. And that's the part for me where I do want to see him improve in that, because like I said, man, last year I thought that he really took steps in the right direction. But yeah, right now it's looking like he's regressed. I mean, these past couple of games, he's been going, further and further in the wrong direction in terms of consistently catching the ball. And it's frustrating, man. But that's part of the reason why I'm also seeing George Pickens has to go ahead and start being the guy. Scheme it up for him. Let him be the guy. Have Deontay be in that third receiver right now, or be the second receiver. Have Claypool coming off the bench, or however we want to, position that. But to me, man, that can't continue to happen without you having some type of consequence in place, because if not, then where's the accountability? And now you run into this situation of, are you coaching this or are you allowing it to happen? You're either cool with them dropping this or you're coaching them to drop it. But either way, you got to have it accountable. You have to say that, hey, this is not acceptable. You cannot continue to do this and continue to think that you're going to have this role in this office when we have another option that is right here that is producing. And that's the thing for me, man, that I want to see us improve upon. All right, Maximus. And shout out to each and every one of y'all that are here, man. Definitely appreciate y'all, man, 100%. Maximus says, I said 2 weeks ago, Bills 30. I wish I was wrong. After this, our next opponents are tough, hard to see a winning season. We should start preparing for the 2023 draft the way we are playing. Go Steelers. Yeah, I mean, it's not the best situation right now. And yeah, that Bills team is really good, 100%. Tough opponents, absolutely. Every week is going to be tough opponents, though. So that doesn't change. I think the difference, though, in terms of the disconnect of when you say go ahead and start preparing for next year, and where I'm like, I don't want to hear any of that, is because as players, man, that's not how we operate. As players, man, it's 1 week at a time. Regardless if you win or lose, 1 week at a time. Because that's how you get back into this thing. That's how you find a way to climax and say, hey, you know what, we were 1-4, but we were able to do this. And it's not like this never happened. And it's not like this never happened in Pittsburgh before. And it's not like it's never happened in Pittsburgh under Coach Tomlin before. So when we talk about these things, yeah, forgive me for not, losing confidence as quickly as y'all at times. Because we've seen this dude. We've seen Coach Tomlin figure it out before. We've seen him, turn sugar out of proverbial non-sugar before. And that's the thing that I'm just banking on, continuing to happen right here, man, until proven otherwise. But we will see, man. It's not looking too good right now. But like I said, man, we will have to see. All right, Jacob Alicio, shout out. He says, what can Coach T do better? Please give us some hope. Well, like I said, man, first off, starting with the accountability element of it, I think that you have to start, holding these players more accountable. You can't just make it a Mitch thing and say, okay, well, I didn't like how this was going. I wanted to spark. I pulled Mitch. Because you send the message that Mitch was the only issue with this team. And that is not the case. As we talk about with these receivers, that's the first switch you can make right there. Get George Pickens more involved. Make him be your number one guy because he's the only one that's consistently producing like one. Then from there, you obviously start looking at this defense. Now, some of the injuries make it a little bit more difficult when we're talking about evaluating them and who you would switch to or who you would pull out. But I think that's where you're at this stage, because when you open that box of pulling your quarterback, you said that, hey, man, if I will pull the most important player on my team, nobody's above reproach. So when you make that message, it has to continue. You have to continue to send that message of, hey, if you're not playing well enough, man, we are not in a season where we can just continue to let these losses just stack up. We're in a season where we're trying to evaluate, we're trying to get this thing however we can to start winning again. So you got to start sending those type of messages. You got to start holding these players accountable. That's the thing that I would say to Coach Tomlin in terms of how, he could be better. That's the first thing I'm thinking of. Now, obviously, in terms of some of the in-game flow stuff, I did not like that first field goal attempt that we, I forgot which one it was, but it was on it was our first time going for it on fourth down. We were supposed to go for it, and we ended up kicking a field goal, and that was when Baz ends up missing. I thought it was a very conservative call. In that particular flow of the game, I thought they were moving the ball. If I remember correctly, we might have had a false start, or I know the false start was on the second one. It might have happened something on the first one as well, but I just didn't like that call. I thought that was a little conservative. So I would say don't seek comfort. But at the same time, I can understand you got a rookie quarterback on the road. You're trying to get points to just stay in it. But I didn't like that particular call. But yeah, that would be the big thing that I would get on in terms of Coach Tomlin, how he can improve this team or how he could be better. Is start holding these players even more accountable. You did the first step. You switched out Mitch. All right, cool. He ain't the only issue. So let's start holding everybody else accountable too, man. So that's kind of what I would say with him. Cal Moon, yeah. I'm pretty upset. But I'm not throwing the towel. There it is. I like that. Let's go. We got a lot of football left to play versus a lot of teams that we could beat. Right now is the hardest part. Yeah, you're 100% right, man. We still can win a ton of these games. We are more than talented, more than capable. The execution is going to be the critical part. The consistency is going to be the critical part. And finding out how we can do that, how we can get these guys to do those things consistently, that's the thing that we're trying to figure out. And that's what we're trying to troubleshoot right now. You heard my approach, but everybody might have a different approach, But that's one of those things where it's like, yeah, we still have a lot of ball left. But we can't continue to let these type of games just, go by the wayside. Now, obviously, this one was not like some of these other ones where we're like, oh, man, a play here, a play there is different. This one obviously kind of got out of hand, especially, like I said, in that second quarter. But going forward, man, we just have to play better. We can't shoot ourselves in the foot. We can't allow teams off the hook. I mean, you think when you hit that 98-yard pass, it's third down, they're backed up on their own 2-yard line. You got to get a stop. You make them punt. Now you're getting the ball at the 50-yard line, bare minimum. That's the type of stuff that you can't allow happen. You talk about that swing right there. So instead of us getting the ball and worst case kicking a field goal, best case scoring a touchdown, we're giving up a 98-yard touchdown pass. That type of stuff, that's self-inflicted to me. We can't have that. It wasn't a blown coverage. It was just bad football, bad execution. So those are the things where it's like, man, we still can be a lot better than this. And we can still fix this in-house. but you have to be more consistent. Have to. 12th wonder. Number 18 is killing us. I'm starting to lean on the Canada sabotage. Looks like he gets scared in his play calling. Sabotage 7, sabotage 10, and now sabotage 8. Man, in all seriousness, he is the common denominator. And we talked about this on the podcast, obviously, prior to Kenny making his first start. I do feel like Matt Canada's NFL career or NFL lifeline is directly connected down to Kenny Pickett. If he doesn't have Kenny playing better and looking better and this offense being a lot more explosive going forward, he is going to be one of them guys that is, unfortunately, I don't see him returning here next year. Because you can't go through 3 different quarterbacks at 3 various stages of their career, 3 very different levels of talent and pedigree, but all 3 have very similar results in your offense specifically. So yeah, man, that is something right now that, he's definitely going to be getting evaluated even more, as if he already wasn't under fire. But now it's like, yeah, this can be your third guy now. Like you told me, last year 7 was old. Okay, cool. Told me Mitch, it was just Mitch being Mitch. All right, cool. But now it's Kenny. So that's the thing where it's like, man, Matt Canada, figure it out, man. Somehow, some way, figure it out. AJ Martinez. Is it playing not doing their job? Or is it players not doing their job? Or is it coaching? Honestly, it's both. I think it's definitely both. Yeah. When you look at some of these plays defensively, for example, some of these guys were in position, but some of these guys are getting ran by. I mean, at times, Levi Wallace, he was getting picked on. Is that on the coach? I personally don't put that on the coach, but at the same time, I don't all the way put it on Levi because part of that is the byproduct of the injuries that we had. And Noah Keller Witherspoon, we said that makes him have to play out there a lot more. And granted, we brought him over here to stand up on the outside and be, cornerback 1 or cornerback 2, worst case scenario, but his transition hasn't been as smooth thus far. And yeah, they picked on him at times today. I mean, even when he got the interception, it was like, man, they had went at him like 3 or 4 plays in a row. Those are one of the things where it's like, yeah, he has to play better. But then when we're talking some of the coaching stuff, schematically, I'm like, all right, should you have blitzed a little bit sooner? Or should you have said, play conservative, go zone and make them have to throw it 60 times underneath? Those are some of the questions that we could talk coaching-wise, right? In terms of just the defense specifically. Offensively, we talked about Matt Canada a lot, but we also talked about some of these plays and some of the drops that were occurring as well. Those drops, that's not on Matt Canada. Not at all. But them players got to make them plays, right? But then when we talk about some of the third down stuff specifically, the route concepts and how some of these plays look like they were designed for the receivers to be short of the yard to gain on third down, yes, that to me is coaching. So you can see the give and take, how it is. Like I said, to me, both sides of this thing have to be better. Both sides have to be more accountable. Both sides ultimately have to be more consistent. But this isn't the first week that we've been saying this. Is not the first week that we felt like this. The difference was we just had more hope because we had to switch at quarterback. But this team is more than just one player away from being where we need to be. We still got to be a lot more consistent across the board. All right. Mike Hood. Shout out to Mike Hood also, baby. He says, I want to stay positive. You've helped me with that, Moats. So much negativity here in the chat and other platforms. We are what we are. Let's roll. Also, Dukes actually watched them. Yeah, salute you for that, Mike. Yeah, they were on NFL Network in prime time yesterday, man. But yeah, man, my dudes, they took care of business. Was it 42-20? I think it was, beating Arkansas State, man, on the road. Officially ranked in the top 25 now, man. First time in program history, so salute them. And yeah, man, in terms of, when we talk about the team, I'm always going to err on the side of positivity just because I've been in these situations multiple times with this coach where plenty of times media and fans wrote us off. Didn't think that we'd come out of a hole, and we found a way and we went on these runs. To me, I never lose sight of that. And as long as Coach Tomlin is at the helm, I'm always going to believe that he's capable of that because of personal experiences. So for, the people that just strictly go doom and gloom, maybe their personal experiences lead them that way. But my personal experiences lead me to believe in Coach Tomlin. And until proven otherwise, I'm going to keep doing that, man. But less about my personal belief in him. Just when you cut on the tape and you look at the way that we are winning and the way that we are losing, in the context in between that, is still a lot of in-house. But it's in-house stuff that is very much obtainable in terms of being able to fix it. And that's the part. Deontay Johnson not being able to catch the ball. Can he fix that? Yes, he's fixed it before. So I don't have to feel like, man, I can't get another receiver, because this is a receiver that is already good. He already creates separation. We already know he can catch. But the problem is the consistency. He's reverted back. It's not there enough. So we could go negative with that, but I always err on the side of, man, I've seen you do it. I've seen you come out of this hole before, so why can't you do it again? That's the difference, you know? But, you know, I like how we rolling over here, Mike, because we can keep that positivity flowing, baby. All right. Is that the homie official momentum? Holla, what's the word? He says, it's not how you start, it's how you finish with the praying hands. No, you're 100% right. That's definitely the case. And yes, I understand. We're out of that first quarter. That's why, yes, you hear the urgency when I speak on the team picks up a little bit more. In the first 4 weeks, you're filling it out. You're trying to figure out, man, personnel. You're trying to figure out what, you know, works, what doesn't work, who's healthy, who's not healthy, who's a guy, who's not a guy. Now, this is the time where we're trying to figure out, okay, we've gotten through some of those roster, you know, movement. We got through that. Now we're to the point where we got to start getting this thing a little bit cleaner. It has to be a little bit more concise these next 4 to 5 games. Then when we get to November, now we need to be, you know, firing on a lot more higher cylinders. And then December, we got to be ready to go. Best ball that we're playing. So it's a gradual buildup. So fish momentum is 100% right. It's not how you start. It's ultimately how you finish. And how many times have we seen this? How many times we sit here and we're like, man, September, October, we're like, man, I think we're good. Maybe we're not good. I don't know. And then November and December hits and we go on a run. And we're like, oh, this is what we're used to. This is the type of football that we play here in Pittsburgh. To me, until I see it not happen then, I'm going to keep believing, man. All right, Barilla 92. Oh, no. Oh, no. One man said we had Mendenhall out there wearing that number 22. Disappointed. Oh, no. Oh, no. Don't you put that on Najee, man. Listen, I don't know what's going on with Najee right now. Maybe he had some, you know, had a couple wings. A couple ankle bar wings up there, something like that. Maybe went to Lenovo and, you know, made him a little bit more sluggish. His vision wasn't where it needed to be today. But I'm still believing in him, man. And why not, right? Now, it does make it a lot harder, or it makes it a little bit more difficult to have that level of patience and belief in all these other things when you do see a Jaylen Warren come in and give you that uptick. But even taking it from a global perspective, when you talk just first-round running backs, we see Najee and how he performed today, but then, you know, you watch a Saquon Barkley, 2 different style of players with both first-round running backs, and you see his productivity. It's like, man, why can't our running back give us that? Why can't he do some of that? And I do think Najee he's not capable of doing everything Saquon could do. I don't want you to get it twisted now, because obviously one's the 20th overall, one was a top 5 pick. So it's a difference there. But just in that context of, man, having a guy that can be a game changer, Najee is capable of some of those things in the past. But right now, it's almost like he's trying too hard to be a game changer and kind of losing sight of just being a decisive runner. And that's the difference right now with Jaylen Warren. Jaylen Warren is definitely that decisive guy. But like I said, I'm hoping that for Najee, this is still just getting up to speed. Now, I can't keep saying that for him. That was the first 4 games because of him missing as much time as he did in training camp. But now, it's like, man, that's done. I need it now. I need that productivity start picking up. And that's the part for him as a professional. I do feel like he will go to that drawing board and go back into the lab and figure out ways to continue to be a better player. But that is something that we need to see more of in terms of just him being more decisive and him actually being the running back that we drafted out of Alabama. Because like you said, at times when you watch me, it's like, man, who is this guy? So yeah, I definitely could feel you on that. All right. Booyah. Shout out to you, Bite B. Says Moats, we're going to need a film session after this game. Holy shit. Yeah. I would definitely, have some film for you guys, man. There will also be some film sessions on the website as well, arthurmoats.com. That is officially up, man. Definitely check that out, man. I'm actually pretty proud of this new website. I think it's pretty dope. But, yeah, we're going to cut up some plays, man. We're going to talk about some of the stuff, some of the good, some of the bad, because that's a part of how we improve. That's part of how we learn as a team, man. And also, I feel like, man, when we're educated as a fan base and we understand what we're looking for, what we're calling for, it does make it a little bit easier and more directed when we want people held accountable. And that's the other part of this thing, man. So we'll get some answers. All right, we also got Jacob Alessio spinning the block. Shout out to Jacob. All right, he says, told you to cut Deontay. I'm so sick of his drops. Shout out to number 14, though. Turns to George Pickens. I get the frustration. I do. I'm frustrated with you as well because, yes, Deontay should be catching these passes. He's more than capable of it. We've seen him do it. That's part of the reason why he was a Pro Bowl last year and why we decided to pay him this year. But yes, this is getting old really quick, and it's even more tiring when you're getting paid $18 a year because you start asking yourself, well, who else could we have had out there if we didn't pay you $18? Who could we have signed potentially? Offensively, defensively, O-line, running game, anything. We would have had better options, potentially. But we decided to stick with you. And right now, it's like, man, the up and down where you'll make some spectacular catches and we'll see you and we're just like, man, you look the part, but then you'll turn around and you're dropping some easy stuff. That's the stuff where that can't continue happening, man. So, yeah, I can understand the frustration, but I don't want to cut him because he is still a good player. But right now, the inconsistency is making us all sour on him when you multiply or when you compound that with the contract as well. So yeah, I'm definitely hoping that he can get that thing righted, but you already know how I feel on this thing, man. I want 14 out there way more. 14 needs to be the guy going forward. Deontay can earn his spot back, but 14 has to be the guy. Because why not? He could block. He's physical as heck. He catches everything you throw at him. He got the dog in him. And you can see even in the third and fourth quarter when the game's out of hand, he still doesn't quit. He still got that energy. He still has that focus of, hey, man, I'm trying to make plays on each and every one of y'all. Like, I love that. So to me, man, you reward him. You keep feeding him. Keep feeding him until proven otherwise. All right, Kyle Monnier. We currently hold the number 1 pick in the draft. Wow. But good thing the season doesn't end today. So we got time to rectify, baby. So it's all love, man. It's all love. All right, we're going to be all right. Mr. That Guy 89. Sorry I'm late. Not sure if you mentioned this, but Minka kind of got out-muscled on that 50-50 ball. And Bush missed that QB tackle. Yeah. I was really surprised to see Gabe Davis go up and just take it from Minka, because Minka definitely had it. And he just took it. He definitely took it. I was a little surprised by that, man. But Gabe Davis is a good player in this league, man. He's young. And not a lot of people nationally know about him. But Buffalo fans, that's not new. Like, he is a really good player. He's just a young player. But he's one of them dudes that they'll be paying him, into this all season. He'll be up there for a little while. Yeah. And as a whole, man, it was kind of crazy too, man. Just defensively, man, we just didn't have our best game as a whole. Yeah, the tackling wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. The coverage wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. You talk about that particular play with Devin Bush. Yeah, he has the opportunity to get a sack. Just bad angle. When you're the free rusher like that, it's funny. You're watching the broadcast and they're talking about how easy of a play it is. That is actually not an easy play, man. When you're coming free like that, but the quarterback does have that type of room because obviously we saw the line condensed down. So, yeah, Josh was able to step up. So in that situation right there for Devin, man, you want to stay upfield shorter and you want to try to close that and condense it as much as possible, give him a one-way go. But that's still going to be a tough play. But, yeah, he definitely overran it, and that's the other part of it. We can, get on Devin a lot more if we want to, but to me, I'm just like, man, that's going to be a tough play to make regardless because it's Josh Allen and because where the D-line and O-line had collapsed too, he was going to be able to step up and go. But yeah, Devin, you want to see him make that play. He's a top 10 talent. So athletically, he should be capable of putting his foot in the ground and finding a way to get Josh on the ground right there. But yeah, as a whole, man, yeah, I'm like, yo, some of that is on Josh. Josh is like that. Dondre Ezel. Trade Deontay and Chase Claypool for another first-round pick / lineman and try and pick up Calvin Ridley in the offseason. Man, we are going full on. Blow it up, man. Blow it up. Whew. I don't want to do that. I mean, I can understand, when you're feeling desperate, you want to make moves. You want to make drastic moves. I get that. But for me personally, I don't think that is needed right now. Deontay, man, we know he can catch the ball. We know when he catches the ball how good he can be. It's just very frustrating when this starts to pop back up. but he's still a good player. He still is able to get open. He's still able to make some plays where we're like, okay, we can't unsee some of that stuff either. And that's the part where it's like, in the moment, yes, it sucks. We want to go crazy, man. Fire them all, trade them all, cut them all. I feel you on that. But in all seriousness, man, these two dudes are still good players. They just have to be more, what's that word I've been saying? Consistent. The consistency is not there. Now, you also got to ask yourself too, man, when I keep hollering about consistency, the rebuttal to that is this. At what point in time do you just say this guy is capable of doing it? And that's a different conversation. But to me, I've seen Deontay Johnson be, 1,000-yard receiver or flirt with 1,000 yards. I've seen him almost have 100 yards or have 100 receptions or flirt with that. I've seen him be a Pro Bowler. I've seen his run after catch ability. I've seen him be able to make, high-end plays with his hands catching the ball like he did in the Bengals game, like he did against the Patriots as well. I've seen that. So it's not that he's not capable of it. I just need him to do it more consistently. But that's why, to me, I don't want to move on from those type of dudes, because we can tell in certain elements where they can be better. Man. And then the rest of the offseason, man, we'll get to that later when it's the offseason. Right now, we're still in the heart of this season right here. All right, Beast Mode 93. Can we talk about Boykin being more reliable than Deontay and Claypool? Yeah, Miles did come in there and have a nice little catch, man. 100% he did. I just wonder, leaning on him predominantly or expanding his role versus Deontay and Claypool, what that looks like, because obviously Deontay, especially Deontay, he creates separation. Claypool to an extent, but not to the same level. But I wonder with Boykin, just how consistently he can get the separation where every throw isn't going to have to be a combat catch with him. But when you're talking about accountability, when you're talking about sending a message, that could also be a part of it. It can be, hey, Deontay and Claypool, both y'all roles is, going to be diminished a little bit. Pickens is number 1 this week. Deontay will be the number 2 guy. All right, Miles Boykin, you be the number 3 guy, or however you want to position that thing. But yeah, those are some of the things that if you are Coach Tomlin, if you're Matt Canada, you're trying to get the players to be more accountable, or the players to understand and realize that, hey, we're not just ending with switching out Mitch. Anybody can get switched out. Then yeah, those are definitely some players that you would look at to send a message to them. And I think you do that. I would rather do that before trading or cutting either one of these guys. Just throwing that out there as well. All right, Ryan Har. I'm butchering your last name, I feel like, but either way, it's pretty dope. How does a team work on the consistency issue? It starts in practice. Yeah, straight like that, man. When you're not consistent making these catches in practice, you got to hold them accountable then. When you talk about hands catching, more reps, jugs machine, spending more time with it. When you talk about your coverage element of it and the losing leverage, the consistency of that is, let's get in the classroom first off. Whenever we are in this particular coverage, where are the weaknesses and where are the strengths? You need to know that first off. And then after that, where you need to be aligned at. Pre-snap versus post-snap. So that way you show one thing, but you're not threatened to lose to your leverage. That's another thing that gets talked about, that gets worked on, because I do feel like when you're thinking too much, or you're not as confident in something, it will make you inconsistent, because you're not going to do it to the best of your ability in full speed every single time. Because was I supposed to go over here? No. So one time you might be late. But then when you know you're supposed to do, I'm going to go over here and make the play. Now you look great. But that's, when you talk about consistency, how you fix it, that's also a part of it. Then when we talk about the accountability element from this coaching staff, all right, we can do those things in practice. We can do those things in the film room. But when we're on Sunday and it's in the game, when I don't see you make the plays you're supposed to make routinely, I pull you out. And when I pull you out, that also sends the message to you that this isn't acceptable. This is not the standard. But also to that next guy coming in, they know, hey, my leash isn't long either, so I better make sure that I'm consistent. So those are some of the other ways in terms of a little bit more heavy-handed approach, a little bit more of a passive-aggressive or more politically smooth approach. But either way, you got multiple ways to go about building that consistency with this team this year without doing anything in terms of outside resources. All right, Gun May. Multiple cheap shots on Pickett. Very frustrating. Yeah, obviously we know the slide where he got hit by Damar Hamlin on the sideline. That was one where James Daniels ends up getting flagged. They don't flag Damar. I initially thought that it should have been a flag just because Kenny was definitely sliding. We can make a case, was he sliding late? We can make a case was, he's still inbounds and all this other stuff. Rookie quarterback doesn't deserve it and all that other case. But my initial reaction was I thought it should have been a flag. But I also thought that James Daniel, what he did should have been a flag. I thought it would have been 2 flags, both all set, and then you kind of move on from there. Trying to think. In terms of Shaq Lawson, when he hit him and his leg was out the pocket, so technically that's not a cheap shot. That's not against the rule. When you're out the pocket, you kind of lose those protections and stuff like that. Trying to think, man. He took some shots though. He definitely did. Like I said, the one for me was definitely the Hamlin one. Yeah, just when he was sliding. I did not like that. But yeah, I'd probably have to go back and like really watch it even more so to see the cheap shots, stuff like that. But those are the ones that kind of stood off my head, man. But shout out to him though, man. He was tough. I do like the fact that he ain't go quit. He got fighting him. I don't want to see too much of it though, because that means getting hit a little bit too much. That's the other part. But yeah, Troy Mason Jr. Bro, Pickens needs to be our number 1. Hello, I've been talking with it, man. Let's do it now. Then Claypool and Calvin Austin in the slot. Yeah, I'm excited to see what Calvin could do, man. He should be getting close to making that return. We cannot trust 18, aka Mr. Drops. Shaking my head. Yeah, Deontay, unfortunately, man, he's been on a downward spiral these past couple of games, and yeah, sometimes you got to make a switch. If you can make a switch for your quarterback, man, you can make a switch at your receiver position as well. I don't see why you don't do something to let him know that what he's been doing just isn't enough for, what we expect from him and what he should expect from himself, because he knows how talented he is. He knows he's better than that. But at the same time, it's kind of like, at what point do you keep saying, all right, just keep putting him out there, he'll correct it, versus him getting to that point where it's like, man, I'm having bad game after bad game, but they haven't pulled the plug on me just yet, so it can't be that bad. That's the dynamic right now that I'm trying to figure out. Okay, at what point is one side going to give? At what point are the drops going to stop while we continue to give Deontay these reps? Or is it going to get to the point where we pull him and say, hey, man, because you're not consistently catching the ball right now, we're going to sit you down. And we've seen them do that before. But it's not saying that you sit him down for the season. Nah, no different than in 2020. Now, granted, it was different because he wasn't getting 18 a year. But remember, we pulled him in that Bills game, set him. Then we came back to him later on. And he was a lot better when he came back to him. But right now, that's kind of that dynamic. Right now, we're trying to figure out, man, what is it going to take for you to be more consistent? Because he's more than capable of it. And that's the frustrating part. All right, Dondre Ezel. We need an offensive line and a cornerback. First pick, no exceptions. Man, well, I mean, we'll see. Still a long time before we get to any of that draft talk stuff, man. So I get what you're feeling right now, but also you got to remember too, we got injuries in the secondary. We're without our top pass rusher. That's going to make your secondary, especially your corners, when you're going against Stephon Diggs and to Gabe Davis to a certain extent, look bad. Now, we still got to be better, but yeah, that's a part of it, man. All right, Isaiah Jones, just showing a little love. No, I definitely appreciate your support, baby, 100%. Mary Thomas. Tomlin should have challenged that catch. That's how you can lose a team. Yeah, I was kind of 50-50 with that challenge or the lack thereof, because at the time of the game is completely out of hand. The game is completely over with. Now, I understand wanting to keep fighting. I understand the whole, hey man, as long as there's time on the clock, we're gonna come back in this thing. At that point in the game was not about to change. Now, when you don't challenge, it does kind of look like you're quitting. But at the same time, if you challenge it, it's kind of like, bro, what are you prolonging this for? Like, are we just trying to do this just for the simple stat for George Pickens? Or are we saying that, hey man, this was such an impactful play that it deserved to be challenged, or we're down 35 points in the fourth quarter? Like, that's part of this thing with that, man. But yeah, I think across the board, man, as this team, man, from top to bottom, coach staff included, man, they all got their butts kicked. They all got things they're gonna look in that mirror and be like, I got to do better here. And that's the part when we talk about that accountability. You got to be more accountable. But I definitely know the players you're talking about. I didn't, like I said, I was just kind of like back and forth with that, because I was trying to take myself as the player as well. I'm like, man, would I want him to challenge this if I was George Pickens? Yes. But if I'm the rest of this team in that particular moment, I want to challenge that? Probably not. I want to just get up out of here because I'm getting my head kicked in and I'm embarrassed and I'm ready to get back to the drawing board, get healthy, and ultimately get this win next week, especially at that point in the game. but everybody's a little bit different in terms of how they view that. All right. Oh, and shout out to AJ Martinez as well, man. Whew, with the big boy salute, man. Absolutely. Appreciate that support from you. All right, he says, spread the field 5 wides. Someone can be open, and 8 tuck and run. This new offense isn't spread enough. Just like in a marriage, without the spread formation, they cannot have children. Laughing. LOL. I got you. Off on a Sunday snoozer, writing papers for class. No, man, definitely hope that, the papers for your class do be, or I hope they are very productive and successful for you, man. I love that part from you right there. And yes, I do get what you're saying, man. Yes, when the spread is not there in the marriage, it can definitely be bad. Glad for all the spreads in the marriages. Shout out. And in terms of the 5 wide look, yes, on paper, it makes great sense. Yes, on a video game, it makes great sense. But unfortunately, when you talk about spreading 5 wide consistently as your primary formation, you put your offensive line in a little bit of a bind because now they are in one-on-ones throughout the whole game. And if your receivers aren't winning as fast as they need to, or if they just don't win the one-on-one, you do put Kenny in harm's way a lot more than he necessarily would need to. That's the only reason why I don't like anything 100% like that. But yeah, in terms of some of the spread, yeah, you could operate with some of that. But I also wonder how much of that you didn't want to do because obviously, it was windy up there. We saw that affecting especially the kicking game. So you question that part. But then also when you're talking about a Leslie Frazier defense that has a ton of pre-snap movement and disguises, playing in empty a lot, man, one miscommunication, these consequences are a lot greater. When you throw a pick when it's 5 wide, man, it ain't nobody that's going to be over there to help you, man. Them come pick 6s. When you start talking about the protection, the guy gets beat up front. There's no running back that can pick him up and chip him. No tight end that's going to be there to help out. That's the type of stuff that you deal with when you're predominantly 5 wide. So, like I said, you want to introduce some of those concepts. And I do think that's going to also be a trust thing with Matt Canada to Kenny Pickett. And I do want to see more of that, even some more of the hurry-up stuff that we saw in the preseason from Kenny. But that does boil back to Matt Canada in terms of just him understanding that, hey, this isn't your traditional 21-year-old rookie. This dude is old enough, man. He knows what he's doing, or at least, collegially knew what he was doing. So it's like, yo, put a little bit more on his plate. But still got to be better across the board. But no, greatly appreciate you, though. AJ. Jason Purdy. I'll be calling teams for Claypool. Green Bay, New York. Thoughts? Well, with Green Bay and New York, what are you getting from them? Because we're just getting draft picks. I mean, cool. If we're planning for next year, cool. If that's the direction, then sure. To me, I'm still committed to this season. I still think Claypool helps you this year and even next year a little bit more than per se a draft pick. And then on top of that, think about it. They watch the same tape we watch. If you're so willing to get rid of him, what is he going to be worth then? You ain't getting no first and second round pick for a guy that you're just trying to throw out after 4 or 5 games. That's the other dynamic with this. So is getting rid of Claypool for a 4th round pick at best, maybe a 5th or 6th, just based on where he's been at, his productivity. If that's, if that's what, him not being here is worth to you, then sure. To me, I would much rather have Claypool the player and bank on him continuing to develop than me just moving on from him for some type of late round compensation pay, especially when he still has another year left. All right, but Jason Purdy also says Pickens will be the number 1 at the end of the year. Shoot, I'm hoping he's the number 1 by the end of next week, man. What to say? My man is showing what he can do. He's showing it. Believe it. You feel me? Like, it's one thing, man, if, like, and this is the thing, too, when we talk about some of the rookies, right? When it's just blind faith, like at times people have had with Kenny, for example, right? Before he ever does anything, it's just like, man, he's going to be the greatest quarterback. He's going to throw for 500 yards, 7 touchdowns, no picks. It's like, man, he might do that, and if he does, great. But I don't just believe that a player is going to do that just because I like that player. Like I said, I don't believe in nothing like that outside of Jesus. But when it comes to actually playing the game, it's like, man, when I see you make plays consistently, now I do believe you. George Pickens, I've seen him make enough plays consistently. Yes, I believe he's number 1 receiver. He should be that guy. But it's because we've seen it consistently. And that's all it is with me, man. When you're talking about these younger players, man, that's how I differ. If you're in stadium and I'm seeing it consistently, yes, you have earned that right to be out there. You've earned that right to be featured. And George Pickens has definitely done that. Kenny, I'm hoping that he can get to that level. And we'll see. He did some positive things. At the same time, he has some things that he has to get better with. But when that consistency is, man, he'll be in that exact same thing. We'll be like, man, turn the keys over. Let him throw that ball. Let him be the guy checking plays at the line of scrimmage. But he has to get to that point. But George Pickens definitely needs to be that number one receiver going forward right now because he's been proven that he's more than capable of that. Fun, 6,000. I'm tired of people acting like Tomlin don't get criticized. People been calling for his job for a while. And he's not overrated because he's not top 5 right now. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. I mean, he's obviously been under fire. I know when we was here, he was under fire all the time. He was talking about how he was a cheerleader, holding us back, everything, man. It's plenty of times. But, yeah, he continues to produce. And in terms of if he's a top 5 coach right now, everybody's going to have their opinion on that. I still think he is. Tell me another top 5 that's better than him. I'll probably disagree with you, so you might as well not even type it in because I ain't going to really read it off. But, yeah, to me, man, yeah, he always comes under criticism, but at the same time, he always shows that he's more than good enough, and his track record speaks for itself. So, yeah, shout out to Coach T for that. But he got to be better this year, though, man. Got to pick it up, man. Got to pick it up. Sequoia Harris. Well, it is what it is. Someone getting fired. Yeah, man, I'm about to say, man, every time, man, whenever we lose, y'all, hey, fire this guy, fire that guy. So I'm always trying to figure out what's the temperature. Who we firing this week? Is offense, defense? I think I might have saw Terrell Lawson get fired in there too, man. I don't know. I could be off. I thought somebody said, hey, man, fire Terrell Lawson. Man, it's his fault. That was a new one for me. I ain't seen that one just yet. So, yeah, shout out to y'all for that. All right. Mike Lang. You okay with the 3-3-5 defense they've been running? Oh, don't go to Twitter. They're not running a 3-3-5, man. We're trying to run a... we don't have a TJ Watt, you know? So that's what you're seeing. It gets real multiple. It gets real... creative, to say the least. Yeah. Obviously, we talked about DeMarvin Leal, Cam Hayward at times being out there as a DN. That's not normal defense. No, we don't have a TJ Watt. We're trying to figure it out. Yeah. But then also on the secondary and the back end, we were doing some different things, just trying to match it with the Bills' offense in terms of the pass game. But you also, like you said, you come into this game with no Kello, you come into this game with no Edmonds. So by rule of just those two guys being out, now Trey Norwood, who could essentially come in and provide you with being the third safety or the fourth corner, you don't get that option anymore because he has to start now. So now that limits what you can do personnel-wise. It limits what you can do Arthur Milet. So a lot of that is the byproduct of no TJ Watt plus the other injuries that were already happening. And then to go ahead and have even more injuries in stadium when you lose Levi Wallace, Cam Sutton, obviously to the hammy and stuff like that. That put them in even more of a bind. So, yeah, it's not necessarily they're trying to run a 3-3-5. It's just they're trying to do whatever they can do to mitigate some of the loss of the productivity that TJ Watt has in this secondary as well, man. But they got to get healthy. That's the other part of this thing, man. That we kind of lose sight of that as well when it gets like how it was today. But they have to get back healthy as well, man. Or the younger guys or the guys who are subbing in have to play better. One or the other. But either way, today was not good enough across the board. Q. Can we get that film session on Leal? Man, looks very good out there. Now, I definitely want to talk about him, man. I am liking Heisman flashing and Heisman flying around. Some of the things that I've seen from him in previous games, like I said, I haven't had a chance to go and deep dive into this tape just yet because the game just ended. But the things I do like about DeMarvin is this. Even though he's not necessarily the most consistent in terms of his fundamentals and his gap responsibility, the thing that I do like is he's very disruptive. He's a natural penetrator in terms of getting into the backfield. I think that he plays with really good effort as well. But the thing that he has to get better is just gap discipline. And kind of what I was just talking about with that 3-3-5 or the various fronts that we do, I think some of that has hurt him at times in terms of him just looking confused. 3-tech, shade, in terms of 3 technique being, outside eye of the guard. Then at times he's on the outside eye of the center. But then at times we'll move into the outside eye of the tackle. And in all of those alignments, your fits are different. Your responsibilities are different, also depending upon the call. And at times when I watch him, just some of the little nuances of playing one particular position full time, he's missing out on because they're asking him to do multiple positions right now as a byproduct of TJ Watt being hurt. So that is some of the stuff that, like I said, I like about DeMarvin, but some of the stuff that he has to get better at as well, but is part of, what the team is asking him to do right now also. But no, DeMarvin definitely has done some positive things this season though, man. I like what I'm saying from the young guy. Hot sub. Shout out to Hot Sub. And shout out to all y'all as well, man. Make sure y'all liking this stream, baby, for the culture. Definitely appreciate you. Oh, yeah. And don't forget, new website is officially up. ArthurMoats.com, man. Make sure you check that thing. Y'all interact with it. I'm going to interact back one time. Hot Sub says, Richard Mann is missed as wide receiver coach. R.I.P. Richard. Is that part of coaching a problem leading to Claypool and Johnson? Yeah, RIP to Coach Mann, of course. Definitely. Boy, not even just him. Even Daryl Drake. He's another guy. Remember him. Don't forget that. But I don't think that it's this big coaching thing in terms of Claypool and Deontay, because once again, we can't discredit all of their success and now say it's a coaching thing when at the same time, we talk about Deontay being a Pro Bowl receiver and getting an $18 million a year contract because of his talent, because of how he was producing. We can't acknowledge that and then act like that's not happening. But when you're talking about the consistency part of that you could put on the coaching staff in terms of the accountability, in terms of what are you allowing to happen. If you continue to allow drops without ramifications of guys being pulled, their playing time being reduced, their targets being reduced, then they think that it's acceptable. They think that it's okay. They think that it's fine if they drop the ball this time. Oh, I'll get the next one. They're not going to pull me. But if you're the coach and you say, you know what? Nah, next thing you drop that ball, hey, Miles Boykin, you get out there now. That sends a message. Hey, George Pickens, you get out there. That sends a message. But until we start to see more of that, until they are more intentional with that approach, you're going to continue to get similar things. But I don't necessarily think that that's specifically on the wide receivers coach right now, because we know the head guy, Coach Tomlin, he does have to sign off on some of those decisions as well. So it is a lot that goes into that. But that's some of the things, man, when I think of this coaching, in terms of the wide receiver specifically, I'm like, I'm not putting that all on them because, these dudes, man, they've been talented. They've been productive before. But they got to get back to that. And part of that is just being a little bit more disciplined with them, being a little more harder on them. Maybe you try the approach of giving them some leeway because of where they had been, this offseason and stuff like that. But now it's like, nah, man, I need more from you. And when it's time for wins and losses, you can't be friendly the whole time. Sometimes you do got to make some tough decisions like that. Maximus. The Steelers remind me of our government. Not admitting we are in a recession. Oh, Lord. Yo, that's where you went, Maximus. I like your style. The Steelers are in a rebuild, and they should start by firing Canada. Well, I mean, technically, Deontay did say that last week, and people was like, whoa, what you say? You can't say that now? Oh, and in terms of firing Matt Canada, yeah, if that's the guy we're going with this week, it's one of them things, man. Yeah, you got to be better. But as a whole, it's a lot of people on this team and coaching staff that has to be better, man. So, yeah, firing them right now isn't going to change the direction of this team. It's going to make this team magically get better. Unfortunately. I know we wishing it was a one trick, one thing, and we just snap our fingers and everything is fixed. That's not this case, though. And that's something that we have to understand going forward, that, yeah, we're going to have these type of feelings unless they could be more consistent, unless this coach staff can get more out of these players, and unless we can stay healthy. Because right now, when we're losing the type of players that we're losing, it's hard to replace them. We're not losing, rotational guys or backup guys. We're losing our top players. That hurts you, man. Definitely hurts you, man. So that's the other part of this thing that we don't want to lose sight of as well. All right, Jacob, he says, love your moats, but oil your chair. No, I don't want to oil my chair, because when I oiled it and it didn't squeak for 7 to 10 months, you never said anything. So now I'm going to make sure that it's extra squeaky for you and anybody else that got something to say for the next 6 to 7 months. How about that? Yeah. I wish it. Nah, I don't want to make all that noise. Jeez Louise. But yeah, I got something for all y'all. All right. Skydiving heck. Who's most to blame for the defense? Tomlin, Flores, or Terrell Austin? Could too many voices in the room be a bad thing? I mean, we're going to try to figure out who to point a finger at whenever we start losing because that's what we're supposed to do. But we can't highlight all three of these dudes all off season and how the defense has played at the first couple of games and talk about how all those guys being there working together is a good thing. And now that we finally, have a bad loss, now we're saying there's too many voices. Nah, I'm not there, man. I think it was just a bad day all around. I think that the players on the field didn't perform the way they do. I think that the coaching staff could have called a better game in certain elements of it. I also think that the injuries played a role in this thing as well. And we also got to remember that wasn't no scrub team. That's a team that's legit with legit players that actually know how to produce consistently. I think all of that was at play, man. But in terms of who do you blame most for this defense? To me, I think that the pass rush needed to be a lot better today. That's why I start with, because when we talk about some of the key things going into this matchup, when I did the 5-star matchups, first thing I let off with was what? Stills pass rush versus Josh Allen. It started up front. When Josh Allen's able to stand back there and have time to survey the field, go through his first, second, and third options without being touched, he is going to kill you. When Josh is only hit one time in a game, he's going to look like how we did today. But it starts with the pass rush. So to me, that's why I put the first part of the blame. The second matchup on my 5-star matchups was what? Cam Sutton and Levi Wallace versus Stephon Diggs. I should have put / Gabriel Davis, which I wanted to do. But at the time, I was like, nah, we'll just leave it at Diggs. But our DBs lost that matchup. The 2v2, the 1v2, or the 2-on-1. However we want to slice it. Diggs and Gabriel Davis cooked our DBs in that particular matchup. So the first two critical matches of the 5-star matchups, we lost. And it wasn't even close to being competitive in terms of how we lost those. So when we're talking about who we place the blame on, I mean, right there is a recipe for disaster. We're not rushing and we're not covering these dudes. Yeah. And then from there, obviously, we can get into some of the details of, man, should you call this blitz because the pass rush wasn't there? Well, okay, we could put some of that blame on the coaching staff there. But when I'm watching this tape and I'm seeing that you're in cover 6 and you got two guys on Gabriel Davis on the third and 2 from your own 2-yard line, and he goes for 98 yards. That's not on that coaching staff. That's a nice call. You got him bracketed. I got my corner right here on him. I got Trey Noah right here. What we worried about? And he splits that and takes 98. That's not on them coaches, baby. Yeah, so that's why for me, like I said, man, I look at that pass rush first, but then I look at those particular corners in this matchup, and I say, man, you can't lose like that. You lose those two things the way that they did, man, it was a recipe for disaster, and that's why they were able to put up the numbers that they did offensively. So, long answer short, that's kind of where I place the blame at predominantly right now in terms of the defense's performance. All right, Devin Deal. Shout out to Devin Deal. Loss like this burns. Let it. Come hungry. Win a couple. Get healthy. And ready for AFC North ball. Trust Tomlin in those games the most. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Does this loss hurt? 100%. Should it hurt? 100%. And let it hurt. Yeah. But this is what you're going to need, man. Remember this taste, because ultimately going forward, if you don't want to feel like this, when you talk about being more consistent throughout the week, when you talk about holding each and every player and coaching staff accountable and not just saying, hey, this is the guy that we want to put the blame on solely for a narrative, then we will grow from this. But right now, we got to get there, and you can't get there without truly being accountable across the board. So once we can start doing that, we will start to see an uptick in this productivity, and then ultimately get us back to some winning football. Because, man, I hate having to talk about the team when we get losing. It's not fun. It's not fun. But we shall overcome. You know that. All right. And then shout out to the, I gotta give me another drink, man. I got a little dry right there, no? I mean, it is a space talk, so you know I had to research. Hello. All right, man, it's 5:42. Man, we've been on this thing grinding. But the last comment that did just come in that I want to get was from Brent Fox. He says, just showing some support. Moats, hang in there, y'all. Football. Nah, man, salute you, Brent Fox, man, for showing some love, man. I definitely appreciate you on that, man. But nah, man, we'll definitely get through this thing. We will definitely overcome this. Yeah, it has to be better, though. And we will be better going forward. Hopefully. But I guess it doesn't get any easier next week either, man. So, hey, it's going to be fun, but at least we have the casa. So, we'll kind of go from there, man. But as a whole, man, we just got to be better in all three phases. The consistency has to get back. Once that returns, we will start getting back to some wins. I also think that, man, getting back home should give us a little bit more boost as well, man, because, yeah, Buffalo hostile environment right now, man. So, yeah, let's get back to the crib. Let's get a dub. All right. But, yeah, with that being said, man, definitely appreciate y'all for tuning in with me today, man. This was a blast / sickening because we obviously lost. But either way, man, I appreciate the heck out of each and every one of y'all for tuning in with me. Podcast tomorrow, 4 p.m. Don't miss our live. Keep deep diving in this thing, baby. But either way, I appreciate you for tuning in. And until next time, baby. Peace.